what is interesting for especially automotive brands entering on that space is that obviously, what a lot of those brands are looking into is the evolution of the consumer, meaning the new generation that are coming next are not entirely necessarily interested in owning cars or owning vehicles in general. So that is a very strong trend that the market has been seeing, especially the automotive marketing, where there is much more interesting on building different things along the lines beyond the car, and beyond the car being the machine that brings you from A to B, right? So to your point, one of the key elements of why so many automotive brands are looking into this space is because obviously they want to stay relevant for the upcoming generations, right? So not just necessarily for the upcoming generations, but also for the consumer that's shifting their needs and sort of like expectations. So that's a major one, right? So it's keep relevance. The second one is obviously tapping into new generations, or tapping into new demographics, or tapping into new audiences. So how do you leverage initially gaming, for example, or now metaverse experiences or platforms to tap into generations that are more and more used to be spending time within those realms. And the third one, obviously, which is a byproduct, or should be a byproduct, a lot of times of that new, and fresh perspective or positioning within, a sort of like always evolving environment, the reach to new generations, a byproduct of that should be obviously generating new revenue and new business models, and more sustainable business models that become almost like bulletproof for the future. Yeah, I think that the risks are very high, right? So that's why obviously being early within a such environment gives you the leverage of utilizing or exploring early stage technology, but also obviously comes with a very, very high risk, right? As innovation always does. So with that in mind, what needs to be understood within especially the automotive industry is what are the specifics that industry has that is already very risky for when it comes to emerging technologies or cutting edge technologies or enhancement of experience, like we are seeing through Web3, NFTs, and Metaverse, for example. Obviously, is a traditional slow moving industry in general. Obviously, there are very new ways of looking into that, especially within the last 10 years after Tesla and autonomous driving, electrified vehicles. But in general, has been an industry that didn't really evolve really quickly like you would see tech or like you would see other industries, right? So that element of being traditional and slow mover, because obviously, especially when it comes to product cycles, you're looking between 5 to 10 years from a car being designed to be hitting the streets, and a million of different elements that are connected to legislations and rules and safety and measurements and all other things that needs to be followed. So within the product per se, the big risk is being outdated, right? So imagine that if a product takes 5 to 9 years to hit the road, like what you were implementing in the car, 5 years ago from a technology standpoint, a lot of times is outdated, obviously, right? Especially within this very fast pace we move. So that's obviously the first risk, because it's connected to the actual vehicle, and it's connected to the actual product. But as we have seen the industry evolving towards service based or shared economy, or leaning on brand, which is obviously a major element, especially within the luxury segment. Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's different plays that we're seeing within the industry, right? So there are plays of IP plays, obviously, a metaverse or NFT or a Web3 play where the brand is creating a different entity to run all those, sort of like activations or projects under. And that's more sort of like an IP play, which one protects the brand as a whole to get into troubles, right? Because again, it's a very new sphere, it's a very new space that doesn't necessarily has all the, like the guardrails and regulations in place so far. So it's quite easy to get in trouble there when it comes to a lot of things that still not really clear on how, what is the rule, what are the laws and all of it. And I think that the second element as well is how do you look into moving fast within a industry that usually moves extremely slow, and how do you detach yourself from the machinery by almost creating, a second lane or a fast boat that allows that project to take higher risks, to move faster, and to adapt and pivot, accordingly. So I think that that becomes sort of like the second risk factor that obviously, makes sense for a lot of those brands to be entering in. But then the third element, which I'm also seeing with a couple of the brands that I'm working and engaging with, is that they are looking to creating also an entire new business model. Right, they're looking to creating almost like a sister or daughter partner company where they can now leverage this new space and technology, leverage their, sort of like resources and brand, and then create a space on which, they potentially can create an entire business model that has nothing to do with the automotive industry, but you become sort of like the provider within that space, right, within that virtual worlds, or that IP, player within a certain group. So that's what I find is exciting, because there's different ways you can play and you can go about it, but all of them obviously are looking into, one, reducing risk, two, moving faster, and three, being able to do things that you aren't necessarily able to do within a larger group.